money and also cryptocurrency. So I would start by explaining money, the concept of money. And the whole idea of today's lecture is to be able to bring everyone up to speed so that you can understand why this whole idea of cryptocurrencies, why cryptocurrencies are valuable, what makes a cryptocurrency valuable, why did we even create this in the first place, why are they saying it's the future, why is it gradually replacing money, why is everyone so crazy about Bitcoin, and a whole lot more. You can be able to understand this and appreciate it. And the best way for you to be able to understand and appreciate what the blockchain and cryptocurrency is all about is for you to first and foremost understand what money is all about. That is very important. So like I always tell people, when you jump into the crypto space and blockchain space, it takes you around almost everything, almost all aspects of life and almost every industry, because the ecosystem is quite broad and vast, and there's an opportunity for everyone, irrespective of your field of study. There's an opportunity for everyone. So I'm sure everyone online had at one point in time, maybe during their primary school or secondary school or university days, done some courses about money, explaining how it came about making use of fiat today. For those that don't know, fiat is the notes, naira notes, dollar notes, pounds, and all that fiat. So I'm sure at least in one way or the other, we should have heard about this, or we would have heard about this in the past. Because I believe everyone online here is at different level in life. Some persons online might be students, some might be workers, some might be tutors and all. So I believe we must have heard about this. But today I'm just going to brush through money. Then I would lay more emphasis on cryptocurrencies, and I'll try to relate it to money. So my name again is Solomon Gift Amonde, and I'm about to get started now on the history of money. So first, what is money? I will make my explanations as simple and as direct as possible, and I'll be focusing more on examples so that everyone can understand it. That's the goal, to understand it and to be able to explain it to anyone in your own words or your own terms, basically. So what is money? So you can say money is anything basically that has a value placed on it and that can allow you to make use of it in exchange for goods and services, basically. So if you follow this simple definition I gave, it has a value placed on it. That's one very important thing. It has a value placed on it, and it allows you to anything basically that has, and that is why I didn't prepare. It's like I didn't want a situation where I'll be reading from like what I just have on my screen, like write-ups and all. So what I just did, basically, I listed bullet points, all the things I'm explaining, like what is money, when was it invented, first paper money, bill of exchange, gold standard, then expatiating on each of those bullet points, basically. So everything is done offhand, everything. So as I was saying, any stuff that has a value placed on it and it allows for easy exchange of goods and services, that is money, be it digital, paper, or otherwise, it is referred to as money. So please, if you want the slide to be sent maybe tomorrow or later, you can just let me know. I'll always send the slide maybe towards the end or something. Just go with the slide and send it for everyone. So basically, when was money invented? Now we have different accounts online. If you Google online, you can see like different accounts basically of when money was invented, but we can say money is as old as human existence itself, because right from time we've always been transacting with one another, and we've always been exchanging stuffs with one another, most times goods for services. You get what that means basically is maybe you're good with farming, and you can farm for someone. That's the service you've rendered, and in exchange person can give you some tubers of yam. You get, so there was a time where service was being used as a medium of exchange, used as money. So you can basically say that money is as old as human existence itself. But when we want to talk about, okay, someone say we would love to get a slide, no issues. So, but when we want to talk about when we started making use of gold and silver coins as money, this is as old as the 650 BC and 600 BC. It's that old. And some evidence also suggests that metal coins are as old as 1250 BCs ago that people started making use of metal coins. So all of these are pretty easy and pretty straightforward for people to just understand that this stuff has been around for as long as humanity itself. And I already said earlier, what were people making use of before money was created? People were making use of services in exchange for goods, basically. And I give an example about that. Then afterwards, they came about paper money. Now, paper money was first invented or was first made use of in China in 700 and 800 AD. That was when paper money was first used. Now, why did we start making use of paper money? This is where it starts getting interesting. So paper money was used because it was cheaper to be able to create and print and also circulate. It was way cheaper, and it was also cheaper to store and move around, unlike the likes of gold and silver and other metals. Those were not really user-friendly in terms of storage and transfer from one place to another. So paper seemed ideal, like the perfect idea. Now note, afterwards I might start using fiat in exchange for paper. So fiat actually was a perfect option then for people, because they could easily create it and they could easily customize it to the way they wanted. And also when you talk about disposing it, they could easily dispose it maybe for a time where maybe they need to change the notes or something like that, maybe print new notes and new designs and all. It was fairly easy. So that was when they brought about that. And they also made use of it for a whole lot, basically. Now let's move further to the gold standard. Now the gold standard, this is also very important because this is what relates to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all. So basically, they brought about the gold standard after they invented banks where people can go and store their money and get loans and all of that. They brought about the gold standard. So what was the gold standard basically? The gold standard simply meant that for every amount that was held in the bank, they should have an equivalent of that amount stored in gold or stored as gold. So what that means is if a bank has about 1 billion naira, it's expected that that bank should have 1 billion naira worth of gold. So this time around, banks could not just, or the central bank couldn't just stay and print money the way they like. They had to make sure that they had the equivalent of the amount of money that they were printing stored as gold. Now, what that did in a nutshell have way more value, and it also did help limit the way the banks were printing these currencies. That was one of the major stuff that they did, which was extremely important. Now, after some time, I don't have the exact date, the gold standard was actually abolished. Now, what that meant was, this was in the 1900s. It was actually abolished. What that meant was banks now had the license and the liberty to actually print any amount of money they wanted to, without necessarily having that equivalent in gold stored in the bank. Now, this was when we had the major issue of inflation. This was like the genesis of huge inflation, which I would basically explain inflation in a nutshell. So, how did this cause inflation? Ideally, if you had $1 million worth of gold in the bank and $1 million worth of dollar, what that means basically is there will be control in the society. The only amount of money that will be circulating will be the equivalent of what you have in the bank. Now, when they abolished the gold standard, there was no backing again for the amount of money that they were printing. Thus, there was less value and more money circulating. They could print $10 million, whereas they had only $1 million worth of gold. And gold is like the major standard for money. I'll explain why it's the major standard of money under attributes of money. I'll explain that. Gold is like the A-level standard of money, meaning it has to meet up, before you call something money, it has to meet up lots of criteria and attributes. And gold actually didn't meet up all those criteria and attributes. So now, what are these attributes that money should have, that which gold has, and which is also the attributes that if you want to create money today, in today's world, or you want to term something as money, it needs to have these attributes. So what are these attributes? Basically, the attributes of money. What are these attributes? One of the attributes, or one of the characteristics, is it has to be scarce. Now, for those that don't know, I'm explaining why gold is like the A standard, which did set a standard for money. It has to be scarce, like really, really scarce. Gold, as we all know, it is very, very scarce. Secondly, it has to be durable. Now, let me go back a bit to scarce. Gold is very, very scarce, and at the same time, it's very difficult to obtain gold. Very, 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 very difficult to obtain gold. If you know the processes that the gold is being passed through before you can get a pure gold, you know that it's very, very difficult. Next, durable. It has to be extremely durable to be able to last as long as possible and change hands without being damaged and stuff like that. It needs to be very, very durable. Portable. It also needs to be portable too. So if you look at gold, before you can make use of gold as money, they had to place it in bits like coins and all. So it has to be quite portable, and to that extent, gold was portable. It needs to be divisible. Gold, as we all know, it's divisible. We have different coins and all of that, representing different value. Now, it needs to be very easy to recognize, which obviously gold is very easy to recognize. Next, it needs to be very easy to store. Very, very easy to store. Gold is quite easy to store, doesn't require much stress. The only stress is in terms of security, basically. Then it needs to be fungible too. And most importantly, it needs to be very hard to counterfeit. Very, very hard to counterfeit. As we all know, if you see fake gold today, you would know. You would definitely know when you see fake gold today. And it needs to be something that you can easily move it around. You can easily push it to a huge number of persons to make use of it as a medium of payments and all. So these are like the core attributes of money, or you can say the core characteristics that gold was able to set as a standard of money. Now, if you look at even the fiat and you subject this to like this 9 attributes or characteristics that I just listed, you'll be able to understand why the fiat was picked as a system of money. And even if it was a bad system, you can notice that they added some stuffs to make it meet up to this gold standard. And even at that, fiat isn't 100% the gold standard. I'll explain why. Remember, fiat is paper money. So let's subject fiat to this gold standard, which is scarce. Is fiat scarce? It's not really scarce. This is because banks can easily print it because it's not being backed by money. So naturally, fiat is not scarce. It's man-made, so it can be easily printed. Whereas gold, it has a limited number. There's a limited quantity. And even if you want to mine it, it's not that easy. It takes lots of time to mine. And don't get it twisted, gold too also suffers inflation because we have new quantity of gold coming into the market every year. So there's some form of inflation for gold, but it is extremely small. It's less than a percentage. The inflation of gold is in 0.00. So next, durable. Is fiat durable? Fiat to an extent is durable based on the texture of the materials made use of. It's durable to an extent, but not as durable as gold. Is it portable? Yes, it's portable. Is it divisible? Yes, it's divisible. It's divisible. Is it easy to recognize? Yes, it's easy to recognize based on the design. If you see a 50 naira or a 200 naira, you can easily tell. Is it easy to store? Yes, it is. Is it fungible? Yes. Is it hard to counterfeit? To an extent, fiat is hard to counterfeit. And is it able to be made use of in terms of widespread and all? Yes, it is. So if you subject fiat to the gold standard, you will notice that to an extent you can give it an A, which is like 70 or 80, and you can make use of it as money, basically. Now we would relate this to cryptocurrencies, but I don't know if anyone has questions. You can write your questions down. So the whole idea of cryptocurrencies was born based on the flaws we had with money. That's the whole idea. It was based on the flaws we had with money. That's one of the foundation of cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies were created to be stored online and secured by cryptography. I'll still give you a straight out definition of cryptocurrencies though. But they were created to be stored online and secured by cryptography, basically. So these are currencies that can be representing different stuffs, basically. Different stuffs. They can represent almost anything, but they are currencies and they are being stored online in a very, very decentralized way, and they are highly encrypted, basically. So that's where you get the name cryptocurrency. So now for a definition, for those that love definitions, what is a cryptocurrency? So a cryptocurrency is any form of currency that exists digitally or virtually and uses cryptography to secure transactions. That is what a cryptocurrency is. And the very first cryptocurrency that was created and used was actually a Bitcoin, which the white paper was released 2008, and we say it was founded 2009. So it remains the first cryptocurrency that was created. And on its white paper, it was created to be a peer-to-peer system that can enable anyone, anywhere, to send and receive payments. Now, the founder of Bitcoin, or the creator of Bitcoin, can be the person or the group of persons that created, but we don't know if it's a person or a group of persons, or if it's a company, we don't know. The creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, before he or she created Bitcoin, or before they created Bitcoin, they understood in-depthly what money is all about, what money should contain and what money shouldn't contain, why gold isn't the best form of money today, why gold isn't the best form of money today, and why the fiat is failing. They understood all these stuffs and they brought all this together to create Bitcoin, and they made sure Bitcoin did inherit and have all the characteristics of money. Now let's subject Bitcoin to the gold standard again, and let's look at how Bitcoin will perform against that rather. So is Bitcoin scarce? Bitcoin is extremely scarce. Extremely scarce. It takes a lot to mine BTC. You get, it's not something you can just easily manufacture out of thin air. Lies, you can't. The creator of Bitcoin had to make sure he added some form of scarcity into the coding system of Bitcoin by making it quite difficult, making sure that it is miners that are being able to mine new Bitcoins and add them to the ecosystem. You get, and he made sure that the difficulty for mining this Bitcoin is tougher and tougher every 4 years, which isn't exactly every 4 years per se, but almost when they hit a new block, difficulty increases, whereas the reward drops every 4 years. So in terms of scarcity, you notice that Bitcoin was designed to be extremely scarce. But in terms of durability, Bitcoin was designed to be extremely durable because it was built on a blockchain. It was built on a blockchain, and not just any blockchain, but a decentralized blockchain, basically. That is where the Bitcoin network is living, on a decentralized blockchain. So it was built to be very, very durable. And today, based on the amount of miners we have, or the Bitcoin cryptocurrency itself, it's like the most secured cryptocurrency in the world. It is actually. And the Bitcoin network is the most secured network in the world currently. It's almost hack-proof currently. So in terms of durability, Bitcoin hit a very good pass mark. Then in terms of portable, Bitcoin is extremely portable. It lives online, so it can be saved on wallets, digital wallets, basically. So it's done very well. In terms of divisibility, it's being divisible. Bitcoin is extremely divisible. You can divide it beyond 1,000 pieces. You can divide it down to the barest minimum, which is 1 Satoshi. So you can divide it by, I think, by a million. You can divide Bitcoin by a million or thereabouts. Then in terms of easy to recognize, it has no duplicate. It basically has no duplicate. So once you have a wallet and you're being sent Bitcoin, you can very easily tell what you have been sent because it has no duplicates, and it's very easy to store. Looking at the next attribute, easy to store. It's extremely easy to store online and in wallets. Is it fungible? Yes, it's extremely fungible. Very, very, very fungible. Is it hard to counterfeit? Extremely hard to counterfeit because the blockchain is hack-proof and it's very easy to use at the same time too because of its widespread capabilities. It is very, very easy to use. So when you look at this, you'll notice that Bitcoin performed extremely well when you compare it in contrast to the gold standard to be used as money. To an extent, it performed even better than gold in terms of divisibility, performed even better than gold. And to an extent too, in terms of counterfeit, performed also better than gold. And also in terms of portability, performed better than gold because there is only a certain quantity of gold you can be able to move around with. But with Bitcoin, you can easily move around with $10 million, $100 million. Nobody will know. Let me give an easy example. Let's say you want to send money from Nigeria to someone in, let's say, Ghana. With gold, it will be almost impossible. If you're about to send like $1 million, it will be almost impossible. To take longer time, quite difficult and all. But with Bitcoin, you can very, very easily do that. And in a matter of seconds, transaction will get completed and settled on the blockchain. And with fiat, the processes with fiat are quite lengthy and bulky. With fiat, because of banks and all, settlements and all, it takes so much time. But with Bitcoin, this can happen in less than a minute. any amount you want to send, any amount. So that's where Bitcoin beats gold and fiat and so many other means of exchange, hands down. But when you also look at in terms of security, the Bitcoin network is extremely secured. Fiat doesn't come close to Bitcoin network in terms of security. And gold too, when you're transferring gold from one place to another, there are lots of logistics and security you need to pay attention to. But this is different for the Bitcoin ecosystem. So when you place Bitcoin and gold side by side and try to draw like a comparison or plot a graph, you will notice that Bitcoin beats gold hands down when it comes to using it as a means of payment. Hands down. Now also when we talk about store of value, we have lots of platforms, lots of certified bodies pushing for gold, that gold will be used as the ultimate store of value. But gradually, Bitcoin is gradually proving that it can also beat gold as an ultimate store of value. It is we are predicting that within the next 10 years, Bitcoin would have a smaller percentage of inflation than gold, meaning gold will have a higher probability to drop in price than Bitcoin based on inflation. And why? Let me briefly explain this before I entertain questions. Why? This is because, like I said, every year we have new amounts of gold that is being mined, refined, and pushed into the system to the already circulating amount of gold. This is where inflation comes in. And at the same time, to every year, we have new Bitcoin that is being mined by miners and pushed into the ecosystem to thus increasing the circulating supply of Bitcoin. Now, but unlike gold that has almost an unlimited supply, because we don't know the total supply of gold yet, because we're still mining and all, Bitcoin has a limited supply which is capped at 21 million. But for gold, we don't know. They might still be mining gold even in the next 2,000 years. But for Bitcoin, that wouldn't work. It has a definite fixed maximum supply at 21 million Bitcoins. Now, every year, every week, every month, the difficulty for you to be able to mine BTC keeps increasing. What that means is it gets even more difficult for you to be able to mine 1 Bitcoin or 0.1 Bitcoin or thereabouts almost every week, every month, every year. It becomes way more difficult. The miners keep finding it harder to get more Bitcoins out of the network. Okay. The miners keep finding it very difficult to mine or get more Bitcoins. Whereas for gold, it's not the same thing for gold. People are not finding it more difficult to mine gold. No, we already know the places in the world that we have gold. In fact, these days it's even easier to mine gold because of the equipment, the technological advancement, the speed at which we refine these stuffs, and the speed at which we're able to move them from one place to another, and workforce, manpower, and all. It's even faster and easier these days to mine gold than it was 10, 50, 200, 300 years ago. Whereas for Bitcoin, it's getting way more difficult to be able to actualize or mine out 1 Bitcoin from the system. Now, next, the Bitcoin reward is dropping every 4 years. The reward is dropping. Now, this is one tricky part that I want people to understand. One, it's harder, it's getting harder to mine more Bitcoins by the day, by the week, by the month. At the same time, every 4 years, the reward is dropping. Every 4 years, the reward for mining BTC is dropping. So initially, if the reward for mining a block was about 1 BTC, every 4 years, it is being divided into 2. the reward you get is being divided into two. Despite the difficulty increasing, the reward is being divided into two. Now, for most persons that might not understand this, or that this might sound confusing to us, when I talk about reward and difficulty. So the process of mining Bitcoin has to do with having computing power, setting up lots of devices that will be running as a mining rig to help you mine this Bitcoin. So when I say it's becoming more difficult, it means that if initially you needed, let's say, 50 computers to mine 1 BTC. Please, let's pay attention to this part. If you needed 50 computers to mine 1 BTC initially, based on the difficulty increasing, you will now need 100 computers to mine that same 1 BTC. Now, when we talk about the reward dropping, we now get to the part where even with that 100 computers to mine that 1 BTC, the reward has now dropped such that with that 100 computers, you would get 0.5 BTC. So thus, even when you're increasing your mining strength as a miner to mine more BTC, the reward has actually dropped, which this isn't the same for gold. For gold, if you have 100 miners, like workers that mine for you, and let's say 100 equipment that you make use of to purify this stuff, dig and all, and you increase it by ×2, what that means is you get more gold from the soil. That is what it means. But for Bitcoin, it's not technically the same thing, because for Bitcoin, the difficulty increases and the reward also drops every 4 years. So this is why it is being projected that Bitcoin would beat gold hands down as a store of value, basically, because Bitcoin is limited and there's a mechanism that makes it even more difficult to obtain newer Bitcoins every 4 years. Whereas for gold, it is not the same thing. So I guess we would have so many persons that would want to ask lots of questions. In the next 2 minutes, I should be rounding up and you can start asking your questions. So when you have this understanding, you'll be able to know why people keep shouting Bitcoin will get to 200K, Bitcoin will get to $1 million, Bitcoin will get to $500K. It's not because we just love Bitcoin. That is not it. Or because we just feel like it will make us rich overnight. No, that is not it. It's because of in-depth understanding. Very, very in-depth understanding. And also you understand when people say stuff like Bitcoin will go to zero. You understand why it can't go to zero. You understand very well. Now, why I'm laying so much emphasis on Bitcoin is because if you understand it very well to a great deal, you'll be able to understand the cryptocurrencies very well too, and their relevance and importance. I still have one area that I haven't touched. I will do that. You'll be able to understand it very, very well. Now, let me just touch this last side where I would explain other aspects of cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin basically was like the very first use case and implementation, full-blown implementation of the power of cryptocurrency, if done right. Very important, if done right. It was one of the major experiments that became a reality, and it's what we are making use of today. It's why we are having this discussion today. It's because of the success of Bitcoin, which brought about creating so many other cryptocurrencies too. The likes of Ethereum, which I'm sure everybody here knows, the likes of Dogecoin, which I'm sure everybody here has heard of, Neo, Arc, and so many others. These are all cryptocurrencies running on a blockchain again, and most of them have different consensus mechanism. I wouldn't want to go to that because I'll be getting too detailed and most persons might be confused. So I believe my next speaker that would explain more about blockchains to be able to cover that aspect for most of you. So we have all these cryptocurrencies now, and mind you, these cryptocurrencies running on different blockchain, they have different agenda, different features, different utility, it gets different characteristics, but they all have one thing in common. They are running on a decentralized blockchain, basically. Not a centralized blockchain, because we can also have a centralized blockchain, but they are all running on a decentralized blockchain. That's one thing that they have in common. Now, at the same time, some persons might hear of tokens. You get tokens. So basically, we have some few persons confusing tokens to be cryptocurrencies during the very early days, 215, 216, 214, even down to 217. But tokens basically are not running on their own blockchain. If you have a supermarket, you can issue out a token for your supermarket. You get, it can be a reward token, it can be an incentive for those buying from the supermarket or anything. You can do all of that. But you need to understand that tokens are not running on their own blockchain. So a cryptocurrency is running on its own blockchain, whereas a token isn't running on its blockchain. Thus, a token can be issued on another blockchain. And mind you too, it's very important, I'm sure the next speaker will also lay emphasis on this. It's not a must that a blockchain would have a cryptocurrency. It's not a must. It's not really a must. It's not a necessity that a blockchain must have a cryptocurrency. It's not. So we have blockchains that don't have cryptocurrencies. We have that, but you cannot have a cryptocurrency without having a blockchain. It's important you know this. You cannot have a cryptocurrency without having, or you can have a blockchain without having a cryptocurrency. It flies. And at the same time, a token, it's not running on its blockchain. A token is running on the blockchain of another cryptocurrency. So it's quite important that you're able to differentiate and understand these few stuffs that I just explained. I'll say it again. You can have a blockchain, but you don't have a cryptocurrency. But you cannot have a cryptocurrency without having a blockchain. And at the same time, when you talk about token, a token isn't running on its blockchain, but rather a token is running on the blockchain of another cryptocurrency, which you can have thousands of tokens running on a cryptocurrency's own blockchain. You get? So it's very, very important that at least you get these stuffs. Now, Bitcoin is running on its own blockchain. Bitcoin, it is running on its own blockchain. That is why it's a cryptocurrency. So it's not a token, it's actually a cryptocurrency running on its own blockchain. Same thing with Ethereum. Ethereum is running on its own blockchain, and Ethereum blockchain gives you the feature to be able to issue out other tokens on that blockchain. Doge own blockchain doesn't let you do that. Doge own blockchain doesn't let you do that. And we have so many others too. Dashcoin is also a currency, Monero, whole lot, Zcash also be issued on a blockchain. And gold can also be issued on a blockchain. Now, what does this mean, or how is this done? You can Google PaxG. PaxG is gold running on the blockchain. How it's done is there's a company that people store gold with, or they buy gold and store, whichever. So they have a certain amount of gold in there, and they chose to represent the quantity of that gold on a blockchain by issuing out tokens. Thus, if they have 10,000 gold, you get 10,000 bars of gold, which maybe each bar is a pound, like the size, or each pound is 10 kg. Let me use kg since we're good with kg in Nigeria. Each pound, the weight of each pound of gold is the weight of each bar of gold is 10 kg. Thus, they can now represent that gold on the blockchain by saying they are giving out 10,000 PaxG tokens for people to use to trade. You get 10,000 PaxG token, where each PaxG token is representing 1 bar of gold that the weight is 10 grams. So that way, they were able to put gold on the blockchain and let people trade with it. But they are holding the physical gold in their strong house. Same thing too with fiat. I'm sure you can see USDC online, and the tradable dollar, which is also called a cryptocurrency but technically speaking, it's not really a cryptocurrency, like a token. So that is just a representation of a dollar, of the dollar that the company issuing USDC has in their reserve. So instead of giving you that physical dollar notes as fiat to use and buy stocks, instead they locked it up and they issued out the equivalents as tokens on the blockchain for people to make use of it and trade as USDC. So that is fiat and gold making use of the blockchain to make stuff easier for them. So ideally, this was supposed to be covered by the person that will be taking the next topic on blockchains. He'll throw more light on this, basically.